Hello, and welcome to the Phoenix Burning Podcast. There is a phase of the Phoenix cycle where it burns and returns to ash, a phase we often overlook in favor of the more inspirational Phoenix Rising. However, sometimes we need to burn away the old before we're ready for the new. I am Veronika Archer, an intuitive guide and transformation coach, and in this podcast, I share my audio diary chronicling my burning phase. These recordings are completely raw and unfiltered, often recorded while I walk around outside in nature, and I release them to you in their unedited state in the hopes that you may find comfort, hope, and maybe some inspiration as you go through your burning. Hello. On the day that I'm recording this, it is Wednesday, February 8th, 2023, and it is the day before moving day. So if you've been following along in Phoenix Burning, tomorrow I am moving to Tucson, Arizona, and all kinds of amazing synchronicities that brought me there. And my intention had been to really rest and restore for 6 months. And my commitment to you, my commitment to you had been to record my journey along the way for these 6 months of rest and restoration, and to invite you to follow along. And I have had another sudden, I won't say unexpected, because I actually expected it. I felt it in my field. But I've had another turn of events to where I am feeling fully restored after 8 days away. And I'm going to share about that in today's podcast, or in today's episode. I expect this to be perhaps my last Phoenix Burning episode, because the Phoenix is now rising. I wasn't expecting it to happen so quickly, and I want to address that a little bit in today's episode as well. So I will continue to share my thoughts and my progress and changes and all those things in the Dragon Song podcast that will be continuing. But this segment, this Phoenix Burning segment, will close, I believe, with today's recording. Whew. So I am fully restored. What do I want to say about that? Oh my goodness, so many things. So I'll share briefly what occurred. If you followed along, you may know that I decided to work with a healing guide. That's what I'm calling him. The different words you can use. I decided to work with a healing guide for 5 days in a 5-day deep dive, one-on-one experience with the intention of restoring my health. And I also, so then there was 2 days of travel, because he lives on the other side of the U.S. from me. And so there was a day of travel on each end. So it was a full 7 days. And then actually, due to some changes in travel, the way home ended up extending into an 8th day. So it was 8 days. And the reason that I'm sharing that and bringing that up, the reason that's important is I want to share with you a few different things. One is kind of how I went about creating this container for restoration, in case it's something that you also would like to do for yourself. The speed of the restoration, and what I intend to do to continue and carry forward. And also some pretty significant things I had to go through for myself in order to really be able to make this happen. So I'm going to share that with you in case it may support you in making decisions for yourself. So the container that I set, so 8 days. So what I want to share about that is that I made a commitment ahead of time that this was 8 days, 7 days, turned into 8 days, completely focused on this restoration. Because as you may recall, if you've been following along, you know, I was completely shut down in terms of energy, in terms of health, in terms of the pain that I was experiencing. So I made that commitment. I made that commitment to this to be completely for me. And I went almost completely offline. So I went offline. I made a commitment to go offline for those 8 days, and I let people know that I communicate with on a regular basis that I would be unavailable, so there wasn't any concern, including clients and friends, etc. So no social media, no news, no phone calls, no communication on other types of apps. The only reason I say almost completely is because I did receive a number of texts and phone calls during my time away. And I did respond to the texts and the voicemails via text and just said, I'm away and I will get back to you when I return. So I want to share that with you because something that I hear from people quite a bit is that I'm too busy. I have too many responsibilities. There's too much going on, right? And the truth is that it's all about choice and priorities. And really what we're saying when we say those things is that those other things that I'm focusing on are more important to me than myself. And yourself hears that. And yourself responds accordingly. I am less important. Ooh, I don't even like saying that out loud. Right? That affects your mental state, your body. And I'm saying that as somebody who's experienced it. When you don't prioritize yourself believes what you are saying and how you are demonstrating that you don't have value. So I promise you that you can go away for a week and be completely offline. I promise you, your world is not going to fall apart. I run a business. I have clients. I am getting ready for a move. Literally the day I got back, we started packing for my move, right? So lots of things in my world happening. I have 3 kids. Now they are older, so they didn't require my attention while I was away. But you can. And if you feel like you can't, then I invite you to ask yourself, what can I do? Can I do a weekend? Can I do one day? When I was looking for different ideas for restoration, I came across somebody who shared that they would go and rent a hotel room for a weekend just in their own town. Tell their husband that particular person was married. They would just tell their husband, I need you to take care of things while I'm away. And they would just go away for the weekend. Go at home, but in a hotel room, to, be completely off. So can you go away for a weekend? Can you turn off for 1 hour? If you're someone who's in the habit of responding to things immediately and you find yourself texting or replying to notifications constantly, then even a weekend might feel scary. Do an hour. Do 12 hours, right? Just ask yourself, what can you do to show yourself that you come first? So the other thing that I did is I really created a beautiful experience for myself. I rented an Airbnb that from the photos appeared to be a lot of love and attention to detail was put into it. It had a hot tub, and I ordered groceries to be delivered. So I did that before I left. And so I arrived on my first day, and the hot tub was warm and ready for me, which was amazing. I had groceries waiting for me. I grabbed my sparkling water. I don't consume alcohol. So for me, that's like the thing that I love is my fancy sparkling water. And so the day I arrive, go into the hot tub, I have nothing to worry about, no phone calls, take my sparkling water and sit and enjoy the hot tub. And it felt like such a treat. It felt like I was the queen, just being taken care of. It was really an amazing experience. And I maintained that container for the 5 days that I was there. And then I actually maintained that container during my travel. So I allowed myself to, on the way there, I was meditating and journaling and just really being intentional about what I was wanting to experience. On the way back, I was integrating everything that I had experienced. also meditating, journaling, etc., and still not on my phone. So one thing I wanted to share was sort of how I created this space. And if you're somebody looking for a restoration, I encourage you to do that for yourself as well. So the next thing that I want to share is the speed at which restoration can happen. I know I had a belief, and I certainly know a lot of people who share my belief, because we create our own reality, that healing and transformation has to take a long time. And in addition to that, actually a client just said to me the other day, she said, I know we can never be, I forget the exact wording, but free from our, baggage or our shit. The best we can do is learn how to navigate it. Oh my goodness, that even as I say it now, I get a knot in my stomach. That is complete and total and utter bullshit. And it is perhaps what the personal development and healing community maybe wants us to believe, so that we are forever trapped in a cycle of self-development and personal development. It's the exact same thing with health, with our physical health. Our healthcare system is not there to restore us to healing. It's not. And okay, I'll get off that soapbox. But so I did this 5-day deep dive with a qualified, talented healing guide, right? So that's important. You have to be discerning about who you work with. And I walked away from that basically completely restored. And I'll share the basically part in a minute. My energy is completely back. My brain fog completely gone. Not only gone, but like my energy and my focus is actually through the roof. The tingling sensations and pains in my muscles are gone. I'll come back to that one in a minute. So those are the things that the emotional pain that I've been carrying around with everything that's been happening within my family and with myself and everything, is gone. Gone. And I feel like I have stepped into this upgraded version of me, this person that, like, I've always known my whole entire life that this is who I am at the core, and yet I felt like I couldn't access it, and I couldn't understand why I couldn't access it. And I was trying all these different things in order, to heal and restore and be free. And like my client, I've had many times in my life where I believed that the things that I was experiencing were simply a part of me, and the best I could do is manage the symptoms. Whether it was depression, right, which I've shared here, I struggled with, or I managed for most of my life until I became free from depression about 6 years ago. And there's a variety of different things, which I'm going to share some of those in a minute. The other thing that occurred as a result of this 5 days is I had a rash covering my entire back that I have not been able to be free from or get rid of, regardless of all the different whatevers I've tried, ointments and stuff, soaps and whatnot, or changing soaps or not using soap, all the different things, right? It's gone. It's completely gone. Right before I went on this journey, I paid for a lot of supplements that my holistic, hello, our friendly neighborhood dog. You all know that I record these episodes as I walk around in my neighborhood. I had just purchased quite a number of supplements that my holistic health practitioner recommended for me, a couple to help my brain fog, a couple to help my energy, a couple to help my muscles because they were feeling weak, right? So again, a supplement to match each symptom, but not looking at the root cause. And now I feel like I don't even need those $500 worth of supplements. The other thing I've noticed that really surprised me is that food cravings, carb cravings, sugar cravings, caffeine craving is gone, completely gone. I just stopped drinking coffee. And this is really amazing for me because for me in the past, quitting caffeine has been extraordinarily difficult, like way more than most people. Like I would get the worst withdrawals in terms of not just headaches and things, but I would actually experience a depression whenever I would quit caffeine. And I would always sort of gear myself up. I'm like, all right, I'm going to quit caffeine. It's going to be a month of depression. Anyways, so I'm suddenly just like stepped into being this like fully healthy, well person in 5 days, y'all. I would say I didn't believe it was possible, except that I did believe it was possible going into this. I had set aside any expectations, beliefs, just anything. I just was like, I'm going to go do this and we'll see what happens. But I had set aside the belief that it couldn't happen. I said I would address the almost. So I'll say the almost is that I feel my body shifting and integrating. So there's a certain level of discomfort. And occasionally I feel that weakness that I felt before, but it feels different. It feels just like my body is like, whoa, things are different. I'm adjusting. This muscle shifted. Now this other muscle has to shift. And I can feel already that what these next 6 months, or I keep saying 6 months, and I maybe want to take that back out of the universe because words have power. But what this time going forward is going to be is no longer going to be about rest, because my body's like ready to go. It's like hasn't felt well probably ever, and it's like, whoa, this is what feeling well feels like. Let's use this body. But what I am going to spend this time doing now is just really listening and honoring what my body needs and providing it the stretching and the food and really essentially a lot of the things I had already committed to. But now it's more from a more integrated space and a more active space. Instead of like resting and waiting for my body to have enough rest, it's more like, what do you need now? What do you need today in order to be active? In order to continue integrating, in order to continue shifting, in order to continue expanding into this new person that I am. Or not new person, but this like upgraded version or this original version. It's like returning to who I am at my core without all the shit on top of it. So that's why this particular segment is ending, because I will no longer be focusing on rest and restoration. I will be focusing on integration, stepping into this expansiveness, and supporting my whole system, my body and my whole system through continuing. Someone asked me if I had a fear that my symptoms would return, and I don't at all, because I know now why they were there, and I have the tools to continue to continue to be well. I have the tools to be well now. That doesn't mean that things aren't going to come up that need to be addressed. That doesn't mean I'm just magically going to float through life. Nor would I really maybe want to. That's not what life is about. But I understand now. And I can also see so clearly why I was feeling the way that I felt. And by the way, if you're curious, the person I worked with is Lou Corletto, Corleto, first name Lou, Lou. You're welcome to look him up. He does amazing, amazing work. So 2 things that I wanted to share with you. Okay, they both collided in my brain at the same time, so I'll see which one comes through first. Since I just mentioned who I was working with, I'll share this part first. The financial investment. I was raised to not talk about money, to not talk about how much I made, how much things cost. There's a level of embarrassment around a level of embarrassment when, let me back that up. I was raised to not discuss money, right? And what I've noticed is that I also feel a level of embarrassment when I spend money on myself and or even just spend larger sums of money, whatever large might mean to me at a particular stage in life. And I won't want to share with somebody, like, oh yeah, I just spent this much money. Like some people maybe are proud. Oh yeah, I can afford to buy whatever, a $50,000 car. To me, I'll be like, oh yeah, I just bought this car and I don't want to tell people how much I spent on it because there's like an embarrassment that I spent money on myself. So that was something that I had to really process and sort of put down, unpack in order to be able to step into this work. And I'm going to share the investment for me was very large for where I'm at in my current state of cash flow. And it's important to me to share this with you because financial limitations, again, is one of the big, time and finances, right, are the things I hear not just from clients, but also from friends who are struggling with things. I can't afford that, especially for health. I hear that, So the way that I was able to invest in this wellness for myself is I had some money set aside that I was intending to use for a down payment on a house or for an investment. But most recently I was considering using it for a down payment for a house, and I was house shopping. And I decided so basically I chose to invest in my wellness instead of making a down payment on a house. So I just want that to land and sink in. I chose to invest in my wellness instead of making a down payment on a house. Is it really true that you cannot afford to invest in your wellness? Or is it true that you are choosing or you are prioritizing other things? And that's not from a place of judgment. There are times where other things are going to be the priority. No, I'm going to take that back. Your own wellness is always the priority. What I'm saying, though, is that we all have a lot of things that we are juggling and prioritizing and making decisions on, right? And so it may feel really scary or uncomfortable to make certain decisions. But I want you to know that it's possible, right? I chose to invest in myself rather than buying a house. And I chose to be offline for a whole week and not engage in the things that were distracting me from my wellness. And I committed to myself. And by the way, this is not my area of expertise, but I find it interesting. When I looked up the rash that I have, the sort of meaning, the emotional meaning behind it, it's connected with self-loathing or something like that. I believe my rash started clearing up, not necessarily directly from the work over the 5 days. I think it started clearing up actually when I made the commitment to do this work. Because I made the commitment, I made a very clear statement to myself, to my system, that I was important and that I was a priority. So there's one other thing I wanted to share, and that is that I had the opportunity I was packing. As soon as I got back, I started packing my home and cleaning and organizing. And I came across, I just got a sensation in my stomach. I came across journals going back to mid-90s, I think, was as far back as it went. But the ones that really struck me were in 2000 when I was pregnant with my son and made the choice to marry his dad, and a couple other kind of points along the way. And looking back at those journals, the things that I was struggling with emotionally, the things that I was journaling about, the way that I was feeling, are the same things that I was processing in my 5 days last week, in my 5-day deep dive with Lou. So it was funny. It was interesting to me because so many of those things I felt that I had processed already and worked on, And, I've been doing personal development and I teach transformation and all the things. And really, I was really like moving them around. Maybe in the way my client said, learning to navigate the symptoms. So I'd become depression free. I had cleared up my fibromyalgia. I no longer had a negative voice running in my head. I felt peace on a regular basis. I felt confident on a regular basis, right? So a lot of benefits. And yet, really, I had pushed, I believe what happened is that I had pushed things into different parts of my system. So, I talk about the different layers, right? The mental, the mental, emotional, and somatic, and then the energy body, and then source are the different layers. And so I had pushed things. So out of my mental layer, I no longer heard the voice. I no longer heard the negativity. I no longer felt the depression. So I had pushed it into my body. It had always been in my body, of course. But I believe that I had actually pushed it even just more in my body, or had chose to ignore certain ways that it was showing up for me, which is why I really have not experienced a high level of wellness. I had cleared up many symptoms, but they kept returning. They kept returning worse or showing up in different ways. But I had never actually experienced like this high level of wellness that I knew in my bones I was capable of. And the things like the sugar cravings and the carb cravings and the caffeine, though that has been a lifelong struggle. I found in my journals, something I journaled about, a process that I put together like a schedule for myself of, so that I would have more energy and I would eat less sugar. And I had gone through, it was fascinating to skim through many years of journals and see all the different ways that I had tried, I'm using that word intentionally, I had tried to make changes about with these things that kept showing up for me. It was fascinating to look back and see all the different tools and all the different ways. I was basically like circling around it and somehow never really accessed it and actually shifted it. And now I know that that's possible to actually truly shift it. I believe it takes a desire, a commitment to, I don't want to say desire, we all want it, right? It takes something to actually access that, to be able to make that shift. And I discussed with another colleague of mine who, interestingly, was on a similar timeline as me, of having a very significant event that happened in September of 2022, which caused a series of events that caused her to go into this deep place, much like me. And then she had the support of her husband, actually, was what supported her in moving through that and out of that, and it deepened their relationship. So we were talking about whether, my comment was, and you may hear it in an episode with her, but my comment to her was, let's not wait until we're in the depths of despair in order to make these significant, meaningful, lifelong changes in our lives. And she responded that she wasn't sure if it was possible to make these really significant changes without going through some kind of major experience or event, whether it's a major illness, which is sort of what I was feeling, a breakdown in my body, whether it's an accident that causes a life-threatening injury, which was her situation, right? Whether it's a huge heartbreak, the loss of a loved one, whether it's betrayal or death, right? It's these really big events that often give us access to what's going on beneath the surface, what's happening below that's asking for our attention to be shifted so that we are actually able to step into our wholeness and who we truly are without all the stuff on top. Is it possible to access this type of transformation without a major event? The response I'm getting from the field right now is yes. Yes, it's possible. And it doesn't have to be this hard. It wasn't intended to be this hard. And in our human experience, we've somehow made it really, really hard to access transformation. I believe we've made it difficult or it's become difficult as a result of all the conditioning that we have in this world. And all the information that we're given that's simply not true. And, when it comes to the stories we're given around money, the stories we're given around healthcare, they're so detrimental to our well-being. And I believe that if we, some of these things that I've come to understand over this past couple weeks or through this Phoenix Burning and Phoenix Rising experience, my Dragon Song experience, I don't think I've shared with you the story behind that, but my 7 days away, I'm referring to as the Dragon Song, which is why this is part of the Dragon Song podcast now. So some of these understandings I have now, if we were able to, or if we started to teach our children, or even if we all lived in this way of being, first of all, if we all lived in this way of being, and if we all taught our children or infused this understanding, infused this consciousness into even the conception of our children and raised our children in this level of consciousness and this state of awareness, which is actually a returning to ancient wisdom. I believe it's how humankind originally lived. So this is not new. And it's also why we all have access to it. It's in the consciousness, and it's in our DNA, and it's in our systems. We simply need to return to it. I believe that transformation does not need to be that difficult. It does not only need to happen when you've had a major event. These major events give us access to it. And so my commitment now for this year moving forward, my Dragon Song commitment is to learn how to support others and to support others in getting this transformation, getting access to this transformation without needing to be in a life-threatening situation or a similar, dark experience. I believe that it's possible, and I'm getting from the field that it's possible. And so my Dragon Song is a calling to all those who wish to step into this way of living, this way of being, this level of consciousness, where you are living in your true wellness, you are living in an expanded consciousness, and you have a level of commitment to self, to community, to consciousness, to integrity. So you will continue to hear from me and others in the Dragon Song podcast, sharing some of these principles, new things that transpire for me, for clients, principles that support them, and also expressions of this different type of consciousness that we are being called as a species to step into, and that I am inviting you, if you feel so called by the Dragon Song, to step into.